The chair.
Yeah. Okay.
This is the first ever recording of Moderate Voices. So our quality of video and our quality of, well, pretty much everything is going to be kind of lacking. Because this is going to be a learn-as-you-go process. I'm Jason. This is Chuck.
Hi, guys.
We're going to be doing something. I have no idea what right now because my mind has drawn a blank. So I guess we should introduce ourselves, kind of let you get a feel for who we are. I have a 5-minute written speech, and I don't think I'm going to go 5 minutes. My name's Jason. We both are from households in which our parents are still married. It's very important to kind of understand kind of where you're from. I'm from what I would classify as rural America. There are cities. The big city in my area has 30,000 people in it, which is not a big city. I've been to large cities, and it is very claustrophobic to me. So I enjoy living in the rural area. I'm employed, and by no means are we going to be trying to do this as a job. I have a job. This is something we're doing to be just to do. I need to quit saying Now, might work.
You're fighting this really hard there, aren't you?
Yes, I am. I am fighting it pretty hard.
Well, I'll go for a couple of seconds. If you want, I can take over and do my usual speech.
No, I've got to power through this. I'm divorced.
Okay.
I have a couple of kids, one of which, actually, I guess I keep in touch with both, although one of them is really weird how I keep in touch with. The other one I do actually keep in touch. He has 3 kids, all girls, kind of humorous. And that's pretty much me in a nutshell. I tried to go to college, and it wasn't for me. So I went out and got a job where I didn't have to have a college degree to get. Okay, well, there goes the again. And that was all of 2 minutes.
Yes, it was.
So here is Chuck to tell you a little bit about himself. Although I will say this before we go. During the last election, because Moderate Voices, we are going to primarily be discussing political things. When Hillary Clinton was just talking about the deplorables, I saw myself in a lot about how she was talking. Yes, I am conservative. Yes, I fear change. Yes, I don't like the fact that I feel like change is being forced upon us against our will. It's not organic. It's not these people are different, so they're going to change and they're going to all be, and the people who like them are going to start going. No, it's these people are different. They're right. Everybody has to accept them. Well, that only works if you agree with those select group of people. If you don't agree with them, then you're the deplorable. And if you get called something, if you get called a name often enough, eventually you start wearing that as a badge, and you just start to say, well, if I'm going to be called that, if I'm going to be accused, if I'm going to be tried and convicted, then I'm just going to step into that role and be it. And I'm going to be worse as a deplorable because you won't listen than if you had listened and then ignored me. So that's where I'm kind of coming from. Needless to say, I'm going to be the conservative side of this group.
More than likely, yes.
So,
well, not on every single issue.
Not on every single. Actually, there are a few issues in which I am more liberal than Chuck is. And when we get to them, we will mention this is a unusual issue, and I will be taking the liberal viewpoint. But for the most part, I am the more conservative one. I will work on that. There will be no uhs in the second showing.
There will be uhs. Or you just have to accept them in your talking. Until you do it a lot, you get better. All right, so my name is Chuck. I do ums as well, but I do it in front of my class. It's a little bit about myself. I have a PhD in mathematics. I just got it last year. So I have entered the realm of the academic intelligentsia, I suppose. the academic elite that the deplorables typically are on the opposite side of. Although I'm not sure I really fit into that. Prior to going back to college, I worked as just a regular old guy working at a steel construction company for 13 years, and then I decided I wanted to do something different. Mainly, I wanted to teach. Went back to college. They told me, hey, why don't you go ahead and get a doctorate, and you could teach college instead of teaching high school. And I was like, okay, that sounds like fun. So I finished up. I graduated from Baylor last May, which, you know, I'm kind of ashamed to say now, considering some of the stuff coming out of Baylor the last couple years. I'm personally not responsible for that at all. I only ever had good athletes in my classes that I taught there. So but the issues there are something maybe we'll talk about at some point.
Teach them how to rate correctly. So is that
I did not teach them how to. Apparently, I wasn't in charge. I was teaching them how to do math, not 100% how to live their life. I now work for a very religious school. I work for Wayland Baptist University in far west Texas. I'm halfway between Amarillo and Lubbock, which for those people who know where that are, good for you. If you don't, just pretend that I'm in a town that's actually smaller than Jason's, and you're good to go, because I really am in a, well,
no, you're not. I live in a town
bigger
that's size 4,000.
Ardmore is a larger city than my city. That's important to realize. There are about 20,000 people.
We decided that they were roughly the same size.
Ardmore's a little bigger, but yeah, close to the same.
But considering that Ardmore is the city for like 50 square miles around here, your city, you got Lubbock to the south and Amarillo to the north. So
I mean, Amarillo's about the same. It's a little farther from your place to Oklahoma City than from here to Amarillo, but it's about the same. It's really close to the same. It's about 70 miles north. So it's about the same distance to Norman from your place to Norman might be a little bit closer than from here to Amarillo.
Yeah, because it's only basically 55 miles to Norman.
Yeah.
Well, but from where I live, it's 70 because I live 15 miles away from the highway.
But on the flip side, I am closer to Lubbock, which Lubbock is also another large city. It's got a major university and stuff like that. But this is a very small town, small town mentality, very religious and very conservative. So I don't fit in. I fit in okay. I fit in fine. I think of myself as a religious person, but in terms of many things, I'm much more liberal than Jason would be. On most social issues, I fall on the left side, but not an extreme side, as we'll discuss as we come along and do stuff. I mean, there's no way I could be an extreme liberal considering where I grew up. It's just not a possibility for me to think of myself in that level. I don't know. Both of us are from Oklahoma. I mean, I was born and raised there and lived there until 10 years ago. That was where I lived. So one of the reddest states you can go to, and it's not like I went to a different colored state. I mean, I went to Texas, which is still pretty conservative in that sense. And so to fit in, you have to be at least able to understand and relate on a daily basis with people. So, but I'm single, never married, have no kids. My kids are my friends' kids, so I'm a little different in that sense. So that also lends towards more being a bit of a liberal person to some extent, but also being more conservative, because typically single people are a little more self-absorbed in both directions. So it's interesting to think about it in that sense. But when we talk about education, I'm going to be very adamant about that. I'm very opinionated because that's what I do for a living. I teach people, and I have a lot of anecdotal evidence that means nothing, but it's fun to talk about. So
anecdotal evidence is kind of irrelevant.
It's not relevant. I'm a scientist. I believe in scientific theory and scientific methods, so there is that. I don't like to use anecdotal evidence for a lot of things, but when you start talking about stuff and opinions, you actually have only your own experience to pull on, so that's important.
All right. Well, that is kind of who we are. So we decided that, you know, we have the conversations about politics all the time, and we go in, and I do not believe the mainstream media is as bad as the alt-right believes. I don't really. With the rise of Trump and the rise of the fake news and the all these other accusations being thrown around, it's kind of like, well, who just sits there and talks about it? And honestly, I will be, you know, I am a conservative. I miss, who was that guy's name, The Daily Show? Jon Stewart.
Jon Stewart?
I miss Jon Stewart kind of
odd, considering.
he was a liberal. He made no bones about being a liberal, but he also held both sides of the media up to a certain journalistic standard that,
True.
to some extent, when he left, and by no means am I saying he left caused the problem. The problem was existing, as he pointed out every day on his show, and no one was trying to fix it. And as it got worse and worse and worse, eventually one side figured out how to exploit it. The other side felt like they were both sides are exploiting it. It's just they're doing it in different ways.
It's an exploitation.
Because the media has put themselves in this situation, or I guess as a public, because we have put the media in this situation by not willing to pay for it anymore and not giving them a certain base floor of subscribers, it has created this situation. So you get all these different theories, and we don't know any better than anybody else what is really true. But
I think the biggest issue with this isn't just the mainstream media that's everybody always talks about. There's all these alternate sites for information now that people go to. There's just lots and lots and lots of places to find information, and you have to be able to critically look at it to determine whether or not it's somebody reporting all the facts or just the facts that they want to report themselves. And I think that a lot of times we get caught up in the sensationalism of it fitting what we want to see.
The term, well, there's two terms that are out there that kind of, one, echo chamber, is basically you can't go to the marketplace of information and ideas with an ironclad thought of this is right, and then expect to walk out of there with a different thought. Because what you're going to do is you're going to walk into that marketplace with this iron, and iron being magnetic is probably a good analogy, and you're only going to attract ideas that support your thought, that support your thesis. And you're going to walk out of the marketplace going, I'm right, even though you may have only seen 5% of the information, and all other 95% says, no, not only are you wrong, you are so wrong that it's not even funny. But you got to be open to that idea. And the thing is when you see all this media and all this talk shows, you don't see people open to ideas. You see people who go, this is my idea, this is my thesis, I'm right. And then he's talking to someone else who has a different thesis, and they're right. And I guess they're trying to convince the public that, their thesis is right. And you don't get any conversation of, well, your thesis is mostly right, but, how does it explain this? No. Anything not inside my thesis is ignorable.
Yeah. You don't get any kind of a situation where you realize that you each have valid points. Because usually there's only two sides being argued, sometimes three, but generally only two. And neither side is willing to budge at all on core principles of what they feel when they probably should. I mean, the answer is probably not always over here or always over here.
And
it's usually
the
somewhere
reason
between
we are
those.
creating moderate voices is we don't believe the choices that the solution is an extreme, because it is only a solution for those people who are over there. As a society, a solution for our society has got to be somewhere in the middle. And I'll throw up the standard political ideology where you fall, and we're going to draw a circle right in the middle, and we're going to try to stay in the middle. Now, the thing is, there are some policies, there are some thoughts, I kind of go out, I go extreme. And there are some Chuck goes extreme, and we kind of use each other to kind of go, whenever we start going in extreme, and the other one says, you're being an idiot, there's all these other people you're ignoring, all these other situations you're ignoring, then we kind of go and, think back and try to figure out where we align politically. And the other thing is we want to become more politically active because we keep up to date on what's going on. We're aware of what's going on, but we're very passive in our consumption of political news.
And unfortunately, I think a lot of people in our generation are in that role, and that's why you could say the political discourse in the country has gotten to where it's at right now, is that the people who are kind of in the middle aren't very loud.
Yeah.
They don't argue. They are not super passionate about things. They don't get out and actually. And you don't have to be super passionate. You just have to be active about making things be the moderation is good. I mean, on all these different issues. So people need to speak out in that sense. There's an outcry for that. I think it's just the fact of the matter is you can't out-talk right now the two different the louder voices that exist, especially, All
right.
Probably,
to sum up, because we have reached 15 minutes.
Okay, so yeah.
We've reached. We have certain ideas of how we're going to get this to work. So to sum up, that's Chuck. I'm Jason. This is our new channel, Moderate Voices, which are two relatively moderate people trying to become more politically active. So if that kind of describes you, feel free to join us on our journey, because we really don't have any answers right now.
And at times, not only are we going to be more politically active, but we're going to look into things that either of us will hear about in the news or whatever. I don't know what is. We're going to try to figure it out.
Not conversation. Wrap up conversation. Wrap up thought.
I was.
No.
I was dovetailing with what you said as my side of things. Just basically, that's the other aspect of what we're going to do is we're going to look into issues that maybe we don't understand and try to come up with a better understanding of it.
And that's important. We don't understand. It's not that we're going to tell you what you need to think. It's that we're going to go, we don't know. So we need more information. And a lot of the problems that people are coming out and saying, this is the answer. No, that's the answer. Anyway, I'm doing the same thing. All right, so this is episode 1, and it's a wrap.
Okay.
15 minutes.